In this video, we're going to learn how to remember the quadratic formula easily and apply quadratic equations in the real world. Before we start, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to click the bell button to turn on notifications because more incredible content is on its way. Okay, let's get started. In the last video, we talked about the quadratic formula. Remember, it's the general formula to solve all quadratic equations, and the formula is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Its solution, the value of x, are given by x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. It looks complicated, but it's very important, so I highly recommend that you memorize it. If you want an easier way to remember it, just follow along as I explain this short story problem, and then you'll get it. A negative boy was debating whether or not he should go to the party. At the party, he talked to a square boy, but not to the 4 awesome chicks. The party ended at 2 a.m. It really helps, right? Now let's try to solve an equation by the quadratic formula together. X squared minus 3x plus 1 equals 0. Here, a equals 1, b equals negative 3, and c equals 1. So we can get the solution directly by plugging all the numbers in and getting x equals negative times negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times 1 divided by 2 times 1. The equation can be simplified as x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 4 divided by 2 equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 5 divided by 2. That means that this equation has two roots. X equals 3 plus the square root of 5 divided by 2, or x equals 3 minus the square root of 5 divided by 2. If it seems difficult to solve the equation with factoring or completing the square method, just use the quadratic formula directly and you'll get the solution. Quadratic equations can be applied frequently in the world, so let's look at some examples together. Okay, the area of a storage room is 24 feet squared. It's a rectangle and its length is 5 feet more than its width. What are the lengths and widths of it? First, let's assume that the width is x. Then the length has to be x plus 5. Because the area is the product of the length and the width, we can make the equation. It's x times x plus 5 equals 24. Multiplying out the parentheses, we get x squared plus 5x equals 24. Now just move 24 to the left side and change the sign and get x squared plus 5x minus 24 equals 0. If you're not familiar with this transposition method, check the link in the video's description to learn more. But let's continue with the story problem. By using the crossing method, we can easily get the solution 24 is the product of negative 3 and 8, because negative 3x plus 8x equals 5x, so we can get parentheses x minus 3 times parentheses x plus 8 equals 0. Then we get the two roots x equals 3 or x equals negative 8. But is this the final solution? No, because they already mentioned that in the problem x must be positive. So x equals 3 is the only solution of this problem, and the length is x plus 5 equals 8, so you're all done. Check the link in the video's description about crossing method if you're not familiar with it. But don't worry if you really don't want to use the crossing method, because there is ways to get the solution with the quadratic formula directly. Here's how. After we make the equation x squared plus 5x minus 24 equals 0, we can see a equals 1, b equals 5, and c equals negative 24. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 24 divided by 2 times 1. This can be simplified into x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 plus 96 divided by 2. Then x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 121 divided by 2. 121 is the square of 11, so we get x equals negative 5 plus or minus 11 divided by 2. X equals 3, or x equals negative 8. X must be positive, so x can only be 3. The quadratic formula seems sometimes more difficult than the crossing method, but you don't need another method. Just remember the formula and you'll get the right solution. Okay, let's look at another example. A shop can sell 20 t-shirts a day on average. The profit of selling one shirt is $40. A research shows that every $1 decrease in the price, 2 more shirts can be sold. The goal of the shop owner is to have a profit of $1,200 in one day. How much should the price be reduced to reach the profit? First, we assume the profit should be reduced by X dollars. Then, 2x more shirts will be sold. The total amount of shirts sold will be 20 plus 2x. The profit of selling one shirt will be decreased to 40 minus x dollars. Thus we get the total profit as parentheses 40 minus x times parentheses 20 plus 2x. As we already know, in the problem, the total profit should be $1,200. So we can get the equation parentheses 40 minus x times parentheses 20 plus 2x equals 1,200. Simplify the equation by multiplying the parentheses out. 40 times parentheses 20 plus 2x minus x times parentheses 20 plus 2x equals 800 plus 80x minus 20x minus 2x squared equals 1,200. 80x minus 20x equals 60x. Then move 1,200 to the left side by changing its sign. So we get 800 minus 1,200 plus 60x minus 2x squared equals 0. Then negative 2x squared plus 60x minus 400 equals 0. Divide all terms by negative 2 and the value will not change, so the equation turns into x squared minus 30x plus 200 equals 0. The coefficient of x squared is 1, and the coefficient of x is an even number, so we can try completing the square by solving this equation. If you're not familiar with this completing the square, check the link in the video's description to warm up. Okay, let's try it. First we add and subtract parentheses 30 over 2 squared to get 15 squared on the left side of the equation and get x squared minus 30x plus 15 squared minus 15 squared plus 200 equals 0. The square of 15 is 225, so we get parentheses x minus 15 squared minus 225 plus 200 equals 0. Moving the numbers to the right side and changing their signs to get parentheses x minus 15 squared equals 225 minus 200 equals 25. Take the square root on both sides and get x minus 15 equals 5 or x minus 15 equals negative 5. The solutions are x equals 20 or x equals 10. That means the profit of $1,200 can be reached when the price is reduced by $10 or $20. In another example, you certainly can solve the equation with the quadratic formula. In the equation, x squared minus 30x plus 200 equals 0, a equals 1, and b equals negative 30, and c equals 200. So x equals negative 30 plus or minus the square root of negative 30 squared minus 4 times 1 times 200 divided by 2 times 1. Then x equals 30 plus or minus the square root of 900 minus 800 divided by 2 equals 30 plus or minus the square root of 100 divided by 2. 100 is the square of 10, so x equals 30 plus or minus 10 divided by 2. The solutions are x equals 20, or x equals 10. That's it. I think we've already learned enough for today. In the next video, we will talk about the quadratic function, which is based on the quadratic equation, so please stay tuned. If you have any questions, leave a comment below or email us at question@beat-math.com. We will try to answer your questions in a future video, and the most common question will be given priority in our next video. See you next time!